Hey, everybody. Welcome to my channel. And I'd like to just ask you all to subscribe, smash that like button, invite people to subscribe to my channel as we take on some more, I think, really important topics dealing with Alcoholics Anonymous. Here it goes. So this one reads, comedian Andy Dick sentenced to 90 days in jail, must register as a sex offender. Comedian Andy Dick has been sentenced to 90 days in jail after he was found guilty of groping an Uber driver in West Hollywood in 2018. At a hearing at Los Angeles Superior Court Airport Courthouse, Dick was also sentenced to 12 months of summary probation upon release from jail and must register as a sex offender, reports the Los Angeles Times. He was also ordered to complete 52 Alcoholics Anonymous sessions. Okay, there's no such thing as Alcoholics Anonymous session. This is like some weird talk here. 52 Sexual Compulsion Anonymous sessions. We'll have to look that up because we know that now they've made, some fake sex addiction meetings, also not run by any professionals. 12 mental health counseling sessions and pay restitution to the victim. The comedian is expected to start his sentence at Los Angeles County Jail tomorrow, which is November 17th, which also happened. So this news came out a few days ago on November 16th. Dick's lawyer, Daniel Kapelovitz, told the LA Times that he plans to appeal the case, but declined to comment further. During a 2-week trial in June, jurors heard the accusations of rideshare driver who alleged that Dick had grabbed his genitals during an Uber ride in West Hollywood in 2018. They delivered a guilty verdict for 1 count of misdemeanor sexual battery. The latest verdict is just one of the number of assaults allegations Dick has been accused of. He was arrested on suspicion of felony domestic violence last November in Los Angeles and suspicion of felony sexual battery out of Orange County in May. Wow, May of 2022. So he's still at it. He was still at it. Charges are yet to be filed in the 2021 case. And incidents, but prosecutors in Orange County dropped their case after they said the victim refused to cooperate with authorities, the OC Register reported. In 2019, a man whom Dick had accused of assault claimed the comedian had groped and winked at him first, allegedly prompting him to knock Dick out for 15 minutes. In 2018, his longtime girlfriend was also granted a restraining order against him in LA after a domestic violence claim. The same year, Dick pleaded no contest to lewd conduct and battery for alleged squeezing a woman's buttock and making lewd comments while passing her on an LA street. He struck a plea deal for the incident and avoided jail time. So let's talk about this. I am live here. I'm going to do a bunch of new videos. I started some about the vow, watching this. I'm going to really talk about cults. That's going to come up, that I'm going to probably do pretty soon. But when this came up in my RSS feed, I thought, okay, let's talk about this. So this has been something that has really been irking me for a long time. It pisses off a lot of people. Hi, Christine. There's people. I have one person in the chat. Nice to have you. And we're talking about this, Andy Dick story. And when I first was doing my investigation of Alcoholics Anonymous, being the, there's a little hair up there. Get that hair down. Come, control yourself. Anyway, I was really shocked. When I was a longtime member of AA, I had no idea that they were court ordering these people. And it was in the process of having left, I think I left, that people started calling me from all over the country, telling me these crazy stories about how they were court ordering people. And I was like, oh, you can't do that. Alcoholics Anonymous is too religious. And they're like, no, it's like really being done. Hi, Christine L. Nice to have you here. Welcome to my live that I just decided to do today as I was reading the news in my RSS feed. This is something. So how does this change? How is this even possible? 10 years later, we're going, court ordering people to a unregulated, non-professional setting that has no uh, no safety protocols at all, right? There's no safety protocols at all. And nobody has to get up and say, hi, I'm a sex offender and I'm a rapist and I murdered people. And so I'm coming here. But the lawyers will use this as a way to make it so that they say, oh, he had a drinking problem, or, oh, he has a sex problem and it's an addiction. Whoa. Like, there is so much madness around this 12-step cult. And, it really needs to be labeled what it is. And yet, how can the United States courts and governments, well, so let's use the courts because that's what's happening here, have people sent there by a judge. Now, people could really, really fight this. They can, and they have. And we thought that they would set precedent, which they did in New York. I did a show with a guy like 10 years ago who thought it was going to change everything in New York. Now, in New York, they're not so bold. In the courthouses in New York City, I do not think they ever say these words that we see typed here, because California is the most embedded with Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe even bigger than, the Minnesota model where they have the big Hazelton. It's a big monster. It's a big monster. So, hi, Christine. You have any opinions or any solutions to this problem? There were a couple of things that groups of us were trying to do. There was very small groups of us used to do. What was that thing before Zoom? You could do it on our on the Apple computers. That was a way we could chat. We could see each other. I forget what that was even called. That's so weird. But here we go. We're talking about how do you get the judges to stop, right? And so there were people in different states that were contacting people and trying to get smart recovery used as a place where people could be sent if they really did have a drinking problem. But what the problem is that in California, AA just fits right in with all the other cults. And so they've been using this for since the 1940s. That's really the case. And then it was not big until, so there are different stages of when Alcoholics Anonymous started to get used as a real big dumping ground. And one of those time periods is the 70s, when people like Dick Van Dyke and a few other stars and news people got on a stage and said, we are members of Alcoholics Anonymous. They called themselves alcoholics, that they were sober. And then this became like this gravy train. It's Christine is saying in the chat that A is very entrenched in the courts. Christine, what state are you in? Are you in California? So what we learned is that every courthouse has a judge that is in charge of that courthouse. And I was very innocently trying to get to who that might be. And this is the downtown criminal courthouse in one of the biggest cities in the United States. That's kind of a hard fight. You're in Washington State, the Seattle area. That's really bad. That's really bad too. I think that some of your elected officials are steppers. And here's why. Because in Washington, I remember when this law passed, Washington State passed this law that gave sponsors some kind of a special, not anonymity, but gave them that confidentiality. Yeah, they passed some crazy fucking law like that. Yeah, they're nuts up there. And I think that you have maybe a governor, I don't know, somebody really powerful, wasn't as a stepper. It's a joke with my husband. I said, I'm going to run for office and my platform is going to be, I'm an ex-stepper. I'm a runaway from the cult of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's sort of my dream. My dream is standing somewhere very public. You haven't heard that, Christine? Yeah, very public and saying, I'm going to run for office and I'm running on the platform that I am an ex-stepper of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the biggest, most entrenched cults in the United States. So we do have to lay out, well, we don't have to do anything, right? We can do whatever we want. But I think it's kind of cool if in the next video that I do is going to be about, I think, I could be wrong here, and I'm going to start to investigate it. So I'm going to find out that Alcoholics Anonymous and the family, which is in DC, and the Oxford groups were the basis of all the other cults. And why is America filled with all these cults? And why are Americans so susceptible to them? And I think that it's the ideology of the Oxford movement and AA and getting so just become part of the lexicon in the United States, that everybody started to use this lingo and this language. It just is in there so systemically, so deeply, that when people hear it, it rings true, it rings a bell, and they think, oh yes, I personal growth, and I have to do work on myself, and let's all be spiritual, not religious. Like, I just filled out a form to see my doctor, and it said about my religious, and it said spiritual, not religious. What the fuck? This is an AA. This is an AA saying. Well, Christine, about the part with about Washington State, I know for sure they passed a law, and I was like losing my mind when I saw it. I was like, okay, this is really, 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 really bad. So once it's like really, really bad and it's really entrenched, then you go, okay, am I going to fight this Goliath? And how can you fight this Goliath? Like when you think about people that were first trying to go after the Catholic Church, and then people going after other churches, and people then going after the Boy Scouts, and how they said, well, they're individual groups. And they were finally able to prove that wasn't true. And then they knew systemically at the very top of the Boy Scouts that they absolutely knew what was going on. Well, everybody, like even with the Harvey Weinstein story, like the person who was the head of Disney, like they all knew that Harvey Weinstein was the asshole that he was, that he threw staplers at men's heads. Like there was a support group for people who worked for Harvey Weinstein when they left working for him. That's how fucked up they were. And don't tell me that all of the agents at all the big agencies and everybody at the top of every whatever knew what a motherfucker he was. So it took that. And yet Harvey is really so small compared to Alcoholics Anonymous, isn't he? And yet he got it, didn't he? And so did Keith Raniere, 120 years in prison. Harvey is doing time. I think it's still happening now, his trial. It may be almost over, I'm not sure. And then he's got one in London. So he's going to die in prison, I'm sure of it. But the story with AA is that you have all of these people that are famous, and now I'm totally off of the tangent of what I made this video about, which just seems to be, my just stream of consciousness here. She said, let's see, A is cheap, low-cost solution which the courts can easily use to dispose the case. Yeah, but it's so, it's against our Constitution. It's really religious. It's already been deemed highly religious in over 50 of the states, and yet no one cares because California, they just do whatever they want here. So back to what I discovered was through a team of us that were ex-steppers all over the country, we learned that we could write letters to judges. And we could plead with them and tell them about Carla Brada's murder and how this guy was allowed to go to AA instead of go to jail. And so a lot of them play that game. And right here we see with this comedian that he is a registered sex offender, and he is going to be going to AA meetings, and there are going to be very, very vulnerable men and women there. And it's a lie. So if I were to contact all of these news agencies and say, I'm sorry, but Alcoholics Anonymous is not a session. There's no such thing as an AA session. I would be happy if there was. But it's called an AA meeting, and it's run by a bunch of knuckleheads or a bunch of nice people or a bunch of fucking lunatics or a bunch of criminals or a bunch of moms or you name it. It could be run by anybody. And yet this, if you read the story, which I read to you, it's all over the news, that he did things up until 2022, 21, but of course he was let out, and oh my God. But, the first time I saw them call it sessions, it was what they might be saying in court now, so that it seems like they can get away with it. So I found out about this big event, this leads me finally to my story, which is taking me too long to tell you. Sorry, but bear with me. Bear with me. And so I went to this event, which is to honor this big time judge who I actually watched him oversee a trial. It was one of the most horrific trials. I should really do a video on it. It was the Tracy White murder trial. But so there's like 500 attorneys, and there's DAs, and there's judges, and actually a lot of judges there. So I went with this woman who had watched my film and wanted me to go here to hopes that I could make some connections and make some difference. And what happened was, so I was talking to different judges. I raised my hand and I asked a question, and there were some judges that actually did think that, sending people to AA was a real big mistake, and that it's not helpful, and that there's all kinds of, that there's medications today, there's naltrexone, there's just other ways, right? So this is like, oh my God, I don't know, maybe it's like 5-6 years ago now. And somebody says, oh, that guy right there, he's like the head judge of that courthouse, the big criminal courthouse in downtown, where the OJ trial was and all these big trials, where the Harvey Weinstein trial is happening right now. And I went up to him and I said, I had my little card with my film logo on it. And I said, hi, my name is Monica Richardson, and I would like, to talk to you about the court ordering of violence and sex offenders to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And he looked at me and he backed up, and he looked like he was afraid of me. I know he wasn't afraid of me, but he backed up anyway. And he said, we want nothing to do with you. I was like, well, wait a second. No, I just want to talk to you. No, we want nothing to do with you. Just not. And he just kept backing up and backing up and backing up. And I was like, wow, okay. So I went and told my friend, and I was like, okay, this is too big. This is too big for just me. And I called my lawyer who represented my film and helped me get clearance for it and helped me clear everything. It's like a big job to make a film and get clearance so that you can get it out there. And on that note, I'm working on getting my film up on YouTube so it can be free for everybody to see, and I can monetize it, and I can see how many people really watch it, because Amazon is what it is. Amazon is Amazon. Yeah. So I realized at that point I needed a different route, and I needed to forget about that. And so there was no letter writing. Now, he was old, and maybe he's retired, and maybe there's another person there. And but when I told my lawyer, he said, stay away from judges, Monica. They can be really, really, they can be really harsh. And so that's what I decided to do. I said, forget it. And yeah. Now there are other states where, and even other courthouses where that is not true. And so one could reach out, like if we did come together, and those of us that are working on all this stuff could get that letter, get a simple, 1-page letter, and then the people in their areas could make the phone calls and send a letter to the courthouse, make a call, try to get Smart Recovery involved so that people get sent there. But we still don't want sex offenders and murderers sent to any of these places. So what I had, a lot of us felt that in the beginning, the better thing to do would be to have meetings downtown by the courthouses. Like the court, they have rooms, they have big empty rooms where they could easily, let's see, your movie needs wider distribution. YouTube would be good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to do it. It might take me weeks. I called my editor, and I just want to investigate every way to make sure that I can monetize it and stuff. But I own the film, so I think it should be pretty easy. They just have to make sure the file is small enough, which I think we made a small file. So what was I saying? About sending, about people contacting judges like all over the United States, that would be something that could be done. But guys who just really need some kind of nonprofit, and people need to be paid so that, as one can see, one person can't do it, but that there are a lot of videos being made. I have to say, there's a couple of people making TikToks. There's Annie Grace that made one about calling people alcoholics. There's another guy making some YouTubes and TikToks about it as well. And what I feel is that there's finally people are just willing to show their face and willing to talk crap about the shitstorm of Alcoholics Anonymous and how it needs to stop being a dumping ground for sex offenders and violent offenders. And Alcoholics Anonymous in New York could clearly do this. They could have a press conference, they could contact all the judges, and they could say, you can no longer send people to our meetings because they are not professional settings, and you are endangering our members, but they don't care about that, do they? They don't care about that. They don't care at all. What else can we say about this? Shall we go on about the 52 sexual compulsion anonymous meetings? So I'm going to look this up for you guys because I know it doesn't exist. But sadly, there are sex addictions anonymous meetings, and there are multiple forms. Suspended, New York, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. Oh, they changed the name. Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. So now they're, are you sexually compulsive? Find a meeting. So they've changed the name, looks like, because they got probably so much pushback on calling it sex addiction, because there's no such thing as sex addiction when sex is a behavior. This was the same thing that came up with OA. So Overeaters Anonymous was the first one, and then Food Addicts, like and Food Addicts Anonymous is even more fucking crazy than OA. So they called themselves addicts, and they had this ridiculously crazy strict rules. I've known people that are in it, that people become hyper OCD behind it. And yeah, they might get really skinny, but or they don't. I mean, who cares what they become? But food eating is a behavior, right? It's a behavior. So there's a lot of things look like they're. This is not a very big thing. There's Zoom meetings. Everything has been suspended, but yeah. All right, guys. I think this is good. I think it's enough. So we know that Mr. Dick, this guy here, I don't know how to do all those fancy things, but this guy right here, yeah. So if you see him in a meeting, you can know and warn people that he's a sex offender and that he was ordered to those meetings. And if you have any ideas of ways that we can stop this, that stop judges from court ordering people to AA unregulated. So those of you who don't know what AA is, if you're like found me and you like were a part of Nexium or Scientology or some other cult, and you go, who is this like crazy woman, Monica, who's like, all excited about what you've exposed. And I got to tell you, you're really helping a lot of people leave. And I hope that we can communicate and I can interview you and we can talk, because I got to tell you, the vow, maybe because it's a limited series and so it's way bigger, you are allowed to go much deeper in telling the story. And then for whatever reason, and maybe it's because one of you is an actor, the other one is a documentary filmmaker, and so you're not. And Nippy is an actor too, so they're not afraid to talk and get it out. And because that's happening, people are watching. There was a time that YouTube, if you were on YouTube and talking, you were just some kind of crackpot. You were just like some crazy person. But I got to tell you, because of COVID lockdowns, like Russell Brand has a channel that people watch all the time. Like there's all kinds of people that people watch. And even if you think about Leah Remedy's shows, so that was on A&E. If you had A&E, fine. If you didn't, you missed it. But on YouTube, the whole world is watching. The whole world can see it. And what's happening is that all of these steppers who are like on the edge, I call them steppers. That's like AA members who are like, we leave, right? I'm an ex-stepper. That people are going, oh my God, like, it's not the same. There's always differences, right? And some are more extreme than others. But can you imagine like someone being court ordered to Nexium or to ESP, like they are the way that it's like 1 point something million, my last counting like 5-6 years ago, sent to Alcoholics Anonymous. So what's happening now is that people are not considered crackpots because they get on here and YouTube and they speak their mind and they're telling their experience and their truth. And again, somebody's calling me. I got to call them back. Anyway, so the thing is that I think there's this huge bubbling up of the truth coming out because we can do it here. Like there was YouTube videos that were critical of AA, but no one showed a face. So when I first left in 2011 and I was searching, there was Mike Blaine Denial. He had a channel and all you saw were the words and his music. And everyone was like, oh, it's like, whoa, look what that person's doing. They're actually saying bad stuff about, the golden child AA. And, and then the first people, there was a father who did a video and, we all were watching these videos. And when I made I guess it doesn't matter really, but I was thinking about the reason that the vow has rung so true with people is that it's very well done. It's very deep. And you had a whole season and that dumped right as COVID came, I think, is when I watched everything. I read everything. It got New York Times exposure, right? Which Alcoholics Anonymous has had some really good exposure from Gabrielle Glaser, a journalist, and it was in ProPublica and it was in the Atlantic, and there was some stuff in the New York Times about alternatives. There was a huge piece in the Orange County Register, but the New York Times, it was a very, very big. The New Yorker, which was done by Ronan Farrow. So we don't have the same kind of as big in print exposure. But I don't know, Gabrielle's stuff was really big at the time. There was a 48 Hours piece on CBS. But then you have like time for people to just be ruminating about this and like stuck in their houses and talking a lot on Zoom. And so people were coming together all over the world in a way that they couldn't through the computer. And then they dump another season, which was, and he went to jail. Okay, he went to jail. And in the same time period, so did Harvey Weinstein go to jail. And also the Boy Scouts got exposed and decimated. Not that I want the Boy Scouts decimated, because I don't, but I want the pedophiles that used it decimated. Absolutely. And I watched that film. I think Ron Howard made that film, and it came out, and I watched it on television. It should have been, might have been in the theaters, might have been in one theater. But then what happens with the vow that's different? Okay, so now you have these episodes that are dropping, and I'm going to watch another one like tonight. Then all these people, these whistleblowers, are doing their own videos. And so you have a ton of stuff. You just have so much stuff, and people feel empowered to talk. They're not afraid because you're doing it. Mark Vincente is doing it, and Sarah Edmonton, I forget her last name, and her husband Nippy, and other people are just, and then other people are interviewing them who've escaped from some Mormon cult, and Leah Remini, man, I don't know what's going on with their case, but she has a life, a husband, a kid, a career, and she was this. And Mike Rinder, I guess, wrote a book, and not I guess, I know he wrote a book, and Tony Ortega's not stopping, so it's like still ongoing with going after Scientology. But let's see, what did Christine say? AA is pushed in jails, prisons. Could other programs do the same? Yes, smart recovery. And I also think the use of medication that's happening in, I think, Kentucky prison. They're using they're using medically assisted treatment, but it's always followed up, as far as I know, with AA groups where like maybe they could use cognitive behavioral therapy. And once again, SMART has actually a really, really good program. And although very, very infiltrated with AA members, but, I think you can just plow forward. I think it's a good enough program. It is a real program. And they have like a workbook that's very, very viable, where actually the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book is like, it's so antiquated. It's so fucking old. and stupid and ridiculous. Victim blaming. And it's just, when I first got there and I read it and I knew that it seemed ridiculous, it was ridiculous. So anyway, I did 30 minutes and I did not mean to talk this long. Thank you, Christine, for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I love you guys. Please smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. And please share this everywhere you can. And I'm going to be working on getting my film out on YouTube for free for the whole world to watch. And also, there's hours and hours of interviews, like with the ex-board member, lots of people that I can just put on YouTube. I own it, and I might as well share it with the world. So thanks again, and we'll see you all again really soon. And the next video. Bye-bye. All right, here we go. We're going to end it all.